Good
evening, everyone. Allison Salty, Board President, and I have the distinct honor of introducing, under the direction of Kristen Callahan, the High School Chamber String Club.
Thank you all for having us here. This is a part of our club that meets weekly at Goshen High School. It's open to our string students from grades 9 through 12. And so we've got a mixture of grades here, and they're in any orchestra that we have at the school. And even some people who can't fit orchestra in their schedule anymore come and play with us after school. So we have two selections prepared for you this evening. The first is by the Beatles and was actually originally written for string quartet to be included with the Beatles instrumentation. That is Eleanor Rigby. And then another rock star of his time, we have a medley of tunes by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. So they are being student led tonight. I'm going to step aside and let them do these things.
Thank you so much for having us. I don't have my mic. Seriously. I'm sitting from my vantage point and I'm watching.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Good evening. I'd like to call a regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District tonight, Monday, March 6th, 2023, 6:30 PM in the District Administration Building. And tonight's meeting is also being live streamed through YouTube. Next on the agenda is a Pledge of Allegiance.
And to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda, I need a motion for executive session. And Tom and Brett. Be it resolved, the Board of Education will enter into executive session with the intent to reconvene the business portion of the meeting for discussions related to the employment history of a particular person or persons. All those in favor? Opposed? I need a motion to enter back into meeting from executive session. Shannon and Tom. Thank you. Next on the agenda is privilege of the floor. I understand that there isn't anyone that signed up for privilege of the floor, so I will forego reading the policy. Next on the agenda is President's Report. A lot of exciting things that have been happening, but I'm going to leave that to Dr. Coates and Mr. Carter to report on. But I do have Michael Lombardi here, our student representative, and he has what is new, and I think it was your idea, correct? To do a student report. So I will turn it over to you, Michael.
Hello. First off, at the high school, we had 37 students along with 7 chaperones travel internationally to Barcelona, Spain on the school trip over break. It is the first international trip since the pandemic, and everyone really enjoyed the trip and experienced many memories. We had a number of winter sports compete at the Section 9 tournament, won championships, and competed further at the state level. Some of them were wrestling. A number of wrestlers competed at sections. And at the indoor track, they competed at the state championship meets at Ocean Breeze. The swim and dive team competed at the New York State Dive Meet at Ithaca College. The cheer team competed at the New York State tournament. The boys basketball had won its second section title at Mount St. Mary College. Now they will be playing against Section 1 and 4 at the regionals. Spring sports will start up at March 13th at the high school. Next, we have NYSBTA, the New York State Band Directors Association Symposium. They took place this past weekend with 6 students representing Goshen High School. It was a great weekend, and the music was led by some of the best directors in the country. And we have the high school musical tickets, which are now available for the Drowsy Chaperone. The Odyssey of the Mind team, Problem 3, Division 3, placed first and advanced to the state final at the Syracuse Fairgrounds on April 15th. And then we had Tay Fisher, who had held a presentation about Strive for Greatness, and Trooper Anka Witt, who spoke about drug abuse and digital citizenship. And finally, we had a Goshen Coalition anti-drug meeting held on March 2nd.
Thank you.
Thank
And I know
you.
that you're not
Thank
gonna
you.
give yourself accolades, but you yourself play the trumpet, correct? Yeah, so good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Next on the agenda is the legislative update, OXPA, Mr. Tom Loftus.
No update at this time. I'm sure there'll be.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report, Dr. Curtis Coates.
If I could ask Mr. St. Lawrence to join me up here at the podium, that would be great. So I think we're gonna have a motion soon to move Michael on the payroll because he stole a lot of the thunder. I think that Mr. St. Lawrence is gonna speak up. But it truly has been a wonderful end to the winter season. Mr. St. Lawrence, if you don't mind, number one, if you could give us a recap on that. And then I've also asked Mr. St. Lawrence here to speak to the board about the new New York State Athletic Association approval of girls flag football. So Mr. St. Lawrence, without further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, Michael, is a great segue in, and I just want to let everybody know here tonight and also in the community, we've had a wonderful winter. We talk about being one team, and every one of our teams sent representation either through the sections or into the states this year. Obviously, the most recent news is the boys basketball team at 22-1, second consecutive Section 9 title this year. We're very excited about that. They have a bye in the regionals now, and we'll play again on Saturday, March 11th at noon. So anybody out there listening can start to make their plans for next Saturday at Mount St. Mary's College in Newburgh for the second round of the regionals. Our girls basketball team had an outstanding season, finished second in the division, also made it to the sections, won their first section game, and unfortunately lost the next section game to Walk Hill, who also became a section champion. So really good job for the girls basketball. Our wrestling program had a wonderful season this year, dual meet wise, over 20 victories, and we sent one representative to the state. Our boys swimming, diving program, although we were short in numbers, we had an excellent showing at the states. We're a school district that doesn't have its own pool in the building, yet we had 2 divers that placed in the sectionals. I don't want to leave anybody out. I do want to say that our indoor track program also had a state representation, both in the boys and the girls, and it was overall a very successful season.
Ski.
Oh, don't let me forget that we also had a skier for the first time in a number of years. Aiden was involved on the boys' side as a safety, so.
Great. Super, thank you.
Just a little recap.
Great.
Thank you, Mike, too, appreciate it.
You don't mind transitioning into the excitement of girls flag football?
I am prepared to talk a little bit about what's going on for this potential emerging sport in New York State and how it affects us here at Goshen. So if I can, I'll do a little bit of a synopsis and then maybe answer any questions that you might have as board members for what's going on in this venue at this time. So New York State has been approached by New York State Public High School Athletic Association to introduce another sport in the girls for the spring. And the sport that they were looking at doing was flag football. They contacted the NFL, the local NFL teams, the Giants, the Jets, and the Bills in New York State have put forth a support monetarily and donation-wise for uniforms, equipment, and also some potential money for officials and stipends and transportation to help school districts get this sport off the ground. In Section 9, there are 13 schools that have answered the call. We are one of them. We looked at this as a possibility and did a little bit of research prior to on our end to see what the interest might be at our school for an emerging sport such as girls flag football. For any of you who have been around in homecoming over the last couple of years, we do an event called a powder puff, which is very similar to the flag football setup. And it's a very popular sport and situation here in Goshen and at many of the other schools. What is exciting about this is that the support from New York State Public High School Athletic Association, as well as from the NFL and the Jets in particular for our section, has been outstanding. As school board members, for you to know, most of the time when these sports come about, it takes a lot of time to put them in place. There's a lot of thought process. Sometimes it'll be a club level, then it might move to maybe a situation where you have 4 teams in the conference. This situation is one where it's very unique. And that's why I come to you today, sitting on the verge of the start of our spring season, to talk about this particular program and how it came about. So basically for the community to also know, and everybody around the table to know, we're looking at about a $7,000 to $8,000 donation coming directly from the New York Jets to the Goshen School District through the Section 9 organization. We have received, the uniforms are on order, 2 sets of uniforms, so there'll be no cost to the district for uniforms. We have received all the equipment that is necessary for practice and or for play of actual games in flag football. And we also have received a check for $3,075, which is our portion divided among the 13 schools that was dedicated by the New York Jets for us to partake in this. The state has guided us meaning the 13 schools, and me as your representative for Goshen, to follow basic rules and format of girls lacrosse. So the number of nights rest, the number of contests that you're allowed during the course of the season, the officials, the number of coaches needed are all pretty much following that model. And the state adopted that to give guidance and consistency throughout the state for the schools that were going to take part in this. We at Goshen actually have received a phone call, and I will be happy to let them know hopefully tonight what the verdict would be. But we are been asked to host the Section 9 championship in girls flag football at our Coliseum this year on May 24th. I'm hoping that we would have a team to be able to maybe be in that. And even if we didn't, I would hope that the school district would support this emerging sport and allow that section championship to be at our Coliseum. In addition to that, I want to mention that we have looking at one team only at this point, one varsity team, and that's consistent with all the other schools. So it's a one team season this year. We're also looking at the availability of many of the sites having multiple contests to save in transportation and officials, because we know that even with the donations that have been made by the NFL, like I said, upwards of $8,000, that there's still going to be some costs that are going to be inferred by the district. So with that being said, the responsibility of the coaches would be our responsibility for the district to pay, as well as the game officials and then any transportation that might take place. I'm excited about the possibility. I know that right now in discussions, we have 22 girls that are hoping that this would move forward as a sport for this spring. And I think at this point, it would probably be best for me to stop talking and maybe answer some questions to fill in the blanks here as to the who, what, when, why, and how this all came about. So I turn it over to the board for any discussions that you might have.
I just had a quick question. It's logistics, field use. I know that we usually, it's not gonna be an issue. Are they gonna have it up at the stadium? I'm curious.
Yes, it shouldn't be an issue. As a matter of fact, what we're looking at doing is even having the practices probably 2 to 3 times a week. The contest will be usually on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Friday, Saturday. Those contests would be later on in the evening, and even the practices would be later on in the evening. Quite frankly, folks, we're even looking at the possibility of making sure that we could field enough girls for the team, and there might be some situations where some girls might want to try to do this and some other sports. So we wanted to make it as broad as possible to give as much opportunity, since it's really a new sport for everybody. It's exciting. It's taking place across the country, and it's a sport that gives the girls an opportunity to play without a whole lot of equipment, and an opportunity for them to get a lot of exercise and can compete at the same time. So I don't see it as being a problem with practice schedules or game schedules.
I'm definitely excited that there's more opportunities for our students. One of the things that I just want to make sure that in the future, we're building these into the budget for longevity. I'm sure this is probably the perfect time of year to mention this, get this going. So next year, when we get to this time, we have everything in place. So I'm excited. Glad.
Point well taken. I will close with one other statement, that the NFL, for the participants this year, the 13 schools have been invited down to MetLife Stadium at the end of the season for a jamboree, and everybody, not just from our section, but from throughout the metropolitan area, including the teams that the Giants are supporting, would be down there for a day. And it doesn't matter wins or losses or ties. It's just a great opportunity for the kids to have that.
So just as a point of order for the board, while introducing this sport does not require official board resolution, for instance, I'll use a bowling team. Sometimes you may have it, sometimes you may not. What is on for acceptance tonight is the actual donation, so we'll have the funds in hand to be able to move forward. Thank you, Mr. St. Lawrence.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
So if I could ask Mrs. Wells, Mr. Freeze, Mr. Sarah to join us up front. We are at that time of the year where we are now getting ready to present our budget, our proposed budget to the Board of Education for the 23-24 school year. It's hard to believe that we're saying that. We're going to begin this part of our presentations with the non-instructional budget, just to give the board a little overview on what to expect. Ms. Van Lamran will take the majority of the lead tonight in explaining and guiding you through the budget proposal that you have in front of you. But of course, anything in relation to the non-instructional budget, from transportation to network infrastructure to buildings and grounds, any programmatic facilities, anything like that that you would want them to address or answer for you, our directors are here for you tonight as well. But you have a copy of the presentation in front of you. You also have a copy that will be going up to be projected on the screen. As was previously prescribed by the board, this budget has been crafted with the proposal that you're going to see, the assumption of a 0% tax levy increase. Again, this would be the third year in a row. Ms. Lamoureux has also included in this presentation different revenue scenarios to look at if the board so chooses to decide otherwise before you adopt the budget, what those implications might look like. So again, the proposal, it will be based on 0, but we'll discuss also additional revenue scenarios that the board could discuss or contemplate at a later time as well. So without further ado, Brad, I'll turn it over to you.
Very much, Dr. Coates. So tonight is the first of our budget presentations. We will be covering, here I go again. Okay. Yep, there it is, sorry. I have to- again. We're going to be covering the non-instructional section of the budget. I've broken the budget up into 2 sections this year to review. Non-instruction I'll cover tonight. Instructional side will be reviewed on the March 20th board meeting. And then in April on the 11th, I'll be presenting the revenue section of the budget. The reason why I wait until April or in mid-April for the revenue is because we want to wait until the state has adopted the budget, which is typically by April 1st. And hopefully we're on track. April 17th is when we will have to ask the board to consider final adoption of the budget. And we also have the property tax report card slated to be approved that night because that has to be submitted on April 25th. May 2nd is when we will have our public budget hearing. And on May 16th is the annual budget vote this year. So when we develop the budget, we have goals in mind that we refer back to. And for example, we use the board's goals for this year. They include the creation of a district facilities plan, preparing for the electrification of our bus fleet, and the adoption of the policy audit for the board, and also creation of administrative regulations. We also follow and support our strategic plan. Basically, that is strengthening and facilitating a safe and respectful school community, and also designing and implementing a comprehensive and aligned K-12 program for the success of our students academically as well as their personal wellness. Some other items we've kept in mind while developing the budget is to ensure the highest quality teaching and learning for all students, providing a safe, supportive learning environment, maintaining adequate staffing to meet programmatic needs and student needs. We also have our capital project planning, facilities maintenance, and upgrades. We also want to do this while maintaining financial stability and staying within the tax levy cap. I've also adjusted budget lines to accurately reflect expenditures, and you may see this as a note in the detail of the budget status that says right sizing the budget line. That's what that means. And then we also do transparency in our budget development by meeting through with the administrators, the directors. We also do presentations at our board meetings and discussions at our board meetings. So our considerations and challenges that we face when developing the budget, and this is really on any given year, is state aid. State aid is a major source of revenue for our district. It makes up 31% of our revenue. And then we also have to bear in mind our tax levy cap because our taxes make up 66% of our revenue. So between those 2 items, you're at 97%, and they impact our decisions greatly in our revenue section of the budget. And I'll go into more of that when I present the revenue in April. Rising CPI and inflation has had a big impact on the budget this year, and you'll see that as we go through this section, the impact that it's had. Enrollment, we've seen spikes and dips in this district, so we want to be sure to include contingencies for such spikes in particular. Staffing and benefits, I talk about these together because we want to make sure not only that we're adequately staffed, but because salary and benefits make up of almost 80% of any budget throughout New York State, and they have a large impact on our budget. BOCES we consider also because just as we see increasing prices on everything, they do as well. And they have to pass those increases to the districts that participate in their services because they cannot have fund balance or a deficit, so they have to run flat. Curriculum and programs we want to maintain or improve in this area. Special education, we depend on enrollment. Here's another area where you can see dips or spikes. Again, you have to build in contingencies for the potential spikes. Facilities and technology, these both need to be maintained and upgraded as well. Then we have debt service and unfunded mandates. Unfunded mandates we really can't control. Debt service we can, based on our borrowing and planning for our facilities planning in the future. So the non-instructional section of the budget has 8 sections, and they're listed up above. And I'm gonna go through each one and explain to you what the different sections include for costs. So for example, the Board of Education, we include the expenditures for the board meetings, any conferences. We also have software, the board docs, board doc software, sorry about that. And it also includes the expenditures for the annual budget vote. We also have software for that called NTS. We purchase these softwares through BOCES, so you'll see them as a line item through BOCES on the detail. We also have the district clerk salary and all of her expenditures as required. And then we have central administration. In here, you'll find the salaries for the superintendent and his administrative assistant, any conferences, office supplies, equipment such as computers as if they're needed to be replaced. Also any dues. Finance section, this is where you'll find the business office staff salaries. We also have the treasurer in that area and the tax collector and all of their expenses. We also have auditors included in this section. We have 3 different types of audits that we undergo each year, other than the comptroller's audit, but we do have the claims auditor who checks the bills each time and the warrants for payroll on behalf of the board. Then we also have the internal auditor who gets a little deeper at our risky areas. And then last but not least is the external auditor. And they look at the whole business function and all of the different policies and whatnot and report to the board each fall. Excuse me. And last but not least, we do have our fiscal agent fees in here. We are required by law to have our annual disclosure notice filed, and they assist us with that. And should we end up with a capital project, they will also assist us in doing the borrowing. In staff and personnel, this is where you'll find the expenditures for our HR department. That includes salaries, supplies, conferences, and also equipment as needed. We also have the public information in this section too. And that is, sorry, subscribed through BOCES. We have the printing of the newsletters. We have the salaries that we pay through BOCES for our communications person, and all of the expenses as well for that. And we also have our records management piece. That's a small section of this budget. And we have 2 attorneys that we have work for us, Sean Carlson and Thomas Jones. Central services, this makes up the second largest part of the non-instructional budget. And it covers all of our buildings and grounds expenditures, the salaries for the director, the secretary, a courier. We also have head custodians. We have custodians to do cleaning. We also have maintenance workers as well as maintenance supervisors. And all of their cleaning supplies, all of the paper supplies for the entire district is in this section of the budget. All your tissues, paper towels, toilet paper, and again, all the cleaning items. We also have the equipment, tractors, and the ground supplies as needed in any of the repair work that has to be done on the tractors and also the buildings. So seal coating and plumbing repairs and electric repairs and all supplies as needed. And this is encompassing, we have 550,000 square footage of buildings to maintain and repair. And that includes 4 school buildings, the central office building here, as well as the annex behind CJ Hooker and the bus garage. We also do roof repairing as needed and seal coating. I said that one. And last but not least is the utilities. The utilities are making up a very large part of this budget this year because of the increase that we've had to sustain based on inflation. Then also in central services, we have security. New this year, we have our security guards in this section of the budget, as well as our police presence in the buildings. We also have data processing, which is Jim's section of the budget. And we also have copying and all of the copiers, the postage and whatnot for the district, all in one place. Special items, here's where you'll find the insurance for the district, not to be confused with benefits. This is our liability and our fire and theft. We have dues, we belong to the New York State School Boards Association, and we do pay dues for that, and we also belong to the Mid-Hudson School Study Council. Those are some examples of the dues that we pay. We also have budgeted a small amount for potential judgments and tax refunds. And then we have our BOCES admin, capital, and rent fees. So these fees, even if we did not subscribe to any of BOCES services, because the district chose many years ago to participate in BOCES, you will always have that expense to pay for the admin, capital, and rent fees. And this is throughout the county, all of the districts that participate must pay this. Our pupil transportation is a large section of this budget as well. We have our own fleet. We have 84 buses that travel over 490,000 miles per year, or as Jim mentioned, almost 500,000 miles, if you think of it in terms of that. That's quite a bit, and that is run by our director and the assistant director. We have clerical help, bus drivers and monitors and mechanics all making this work smoothly. And in this section, we have not only the fuel to run these buses, we also purchase our buses now through the budget rather than doing borrowing, which increases your interest expense. We also have tires and supplies and repairs and maintenance as needed. Then undistributed is where you'll find our employee benefits. That's the retirement systems, the health insurance, dental, the employer share of Social Security and Medicare, et cetera. Debt service, our bond interest and principal. We have to budget for ours as well as the libraries, but you'll see when I present the revenue section of the budget, the library offsets that, so it's a net zero effect to us, but we do have to put it in both sides of the budget. And interfund transfers, we have 3 that we do right now. We have the lunch fund, mainly because we cannot run in a deficit position. So the general fund has to support the lunch fund, the amount that we can without them being in a deficit. The special aid fund or the federal fund, we also have an interfund transfer for this. And this encompasses 20% of our summer school costs for our special education students. We get 80% in state aid from the state, and the rest we have to cover, and we do so through this interfund transfer. The capital transfer, we started in the budget last year, transferring $1 million, and I've kept that in there for this year, and that's to be used for future projects, whether that be multiple small projects or money set aside for a larger capital project. Now I've taken those 8 sections and I've put in the current budget for 22-23, the proposed budget for 23-24, the dollar change and the percentage change. And I'm just going to give you a high view of what the drivers are causing these changes. The Board of Education is, there's a slight decrease, and that's largely due to the change from using BOCES for the policy for next year and moving to NISBA. So that's the driver in this case. For central administration, these are potential contract settlements that are driving the 2.1% increase or $7,500. Under finance, we have a decrease here, and that's due to staffing changes. There was a 0.25 FTE position budgeted in 22-23 that we will not need next year, and also a purchasing clerk that we do not use as well. So you'll see that savings there in the detail. Under staff, and remember this is also the HR department and communications, this is a decrease due to changes in personnel as well. We had an administrator in the position and we now have a clerical person in the position. So there is some breakage there. Central services, this is a large increase, as you will see, basically due to the increase in utilities, which was 44%, and supplies 16%. This is where you really notice the increase due to inflation. We have a new line in this this section of the budget. Also for camera replacements, up to $35,000 is aidable, so I have put that in, because we do have aging cameras throughout the district. Seal coating at Scotchtown Elementary School and replacing tubes and boilers. That's some of the work that Jim is planning for next year, our Director of Facilities. We've also gone to security guards, and this is another driver here. But you will see when I do the instructional side of the budget, there will be some decreases in lines over there because that's partially funding the increase for the securities over here. We also have budgeted contingencies for the SRO contracts, which will be up as well. And then software, I've moved some software into the data processing section of the budget because they were really not utilized for student instruction. They're more data related, such as school tools, school messenger, dismissal manager, and IEP direct. So again, you'll see that decrease on the instructional side of the budget. It's not that we just started purchasing these items. It's just that they've been shifted over to this side of the budget. And let's see, what else do we have? Sorry, taking too long. Special items, we have an increase of 38.5% or $357,000. And that increase is based on the BOCES project that was passed by the voters in the fall. Our portion of that is $331,000. You will see when I do the revenue section of the budget that there is we will be getting state aid in the same year as we have to start paying for this. Originally, I thought it was going to be in the following year, but now it'll be in the same year. So we will be receiving a little over $178,000 in BOCES aid to help offset this increase. Pupil transportation, the drivers in this section of the budget, we would like to replace, we're going to do it in 2 phases. This will be the first year of our camera replacements in the buses that are aging. We also have the contract through BOCES. We share transportation for our special education students through BOCES, and it's supposed to help offset the costs instead of just transporting on our own. We will combine runs with other districts, but we've had some issues, or they have had some issues, BOCES, with getting the contract in place right now to do pickups and bringing students home. So they're planning to go out for a new bid. And whenever you see a new bid in transportation, there's typically an increase. And also with the costs of fuel going up so much and having issues getting drivers to work, I have no doubt that this will increase. It had increased this year as well. So we're actually doing a 2-step here. We're increasing the budget to match the current expenditures for 22-23 and also increasing it in the event that it goes up after this bid comes in. And in the undistributed section, the increase here, we do have an increase in our health insurance. The overall rate is going up 4%. But again, that's the overall rate. We do have we have individual 2-person and 3-person rates. So they will change on different percentages, but overall it's a 4% increase. Our employer share of Social Security and Medicare is going up. ERS is increasing, however, TRS is declining, going from 10.29% to 9.8%. So I don't know why the two don't go up and down at the same time, but I have seen that frequently. So I've taken those 8 sections and put them in a pie chart for a visual effect for you to see what makes up the biggest part of the non-instructional budget. And here you can see it's undistributed. This is where the benefits are. And as you recall, I mentioned how benefits and salaries make up the majority of our budgets. This is in sync with that. Our next largest section is central services, followed by transportation. And just a note, our smallest section is the Board of Education. And you can even see the line up there. It's a little green line. And central admin, or the superintendent's office, makes up the second smallest amount of this section of the budget. So in every budget throughout New York State, because we have to use the same codes, these are the specific object codes. So I'm not going to go through each one, but you have your instructional salaries and non-instructional salaries. Instructional salaries belong to the teacher's retirement system, and they are in a 0.15 code. Non-instructional salaries belong to the employee's retirement system and are typically a 0.16. Sometimes they'll be followed by another number, but for the most part, they follow the same. We have equipment, contractual, this is where you can find our utilities and our security and any other contractual items. And then supplies, BOCES, debt service, distributed, so on and so forth. And here are those items, also in a comparison with our current budget for 22-23, the dollar change and the percentage change. And as you can see, our salaries, typically you'll see a 2 to 3% increase in salaries. However, we're less than 1%. And that's because I have moved part of our technology department head salary, all of his salary, over to the instructional side, because he really oversees the entire district, not just the data portion, which is where he was. So I moved that over to instructional. We've had the changes in the HR department. We've had the reduction in the business office. So that's why we are under 1% increase for salaries. Equipment, the drivers here are based on a replacement UTV for the Buildings and Grounds Department and 2 vans. They're on a 10-year schedule for replacement plan, but during COVID, there was 2 years that they were not replacing equipment on that schedule. So now we're gonna try to catch that up and do 2 this year and then get back to 1 per year after that. We also have the cameras district-wide included in this section, or in the equipment section, and also the cameras for the buses as well. Contract services, the driver here is really our utilities. We have 40% increase in utilities, that's your fuel oil, the natural gas, the electric, and the diesel fuel and gasoline as needed. And then again, our security needs also is one of the drivers here. Supplies, this is based on inflation rates and CPI. BOCES services, right now, although that's 351,000 for the project, makes up about half of this. The rest of it is based on the movement of those softwares from the instructional side over to the central data processing side of instructional. So a lot of these drivers, you hear me talking about how they're being moved. So they're really not increases to the budget so much as they are shifts in the budget from one area to another to get us right aligned with where we should be. And then last but not least is other, which is where your benefits are, debt service and interfund transfers. And the increase here is 2.6% overall with these items. So our total budget comes to a little over $40 million in the non-instructional side. That's $2.7 million increase or 7.4%. And here's another pie chart for a visual of what makes up the budget in objects. So for instance, salaries make up the second largest part. Other, again, that's where you'll find benefits and undistributed costs, debt service and whatnot, they make up the largest part. And the smallest piece of the pie here is supplies and then equipment. So although you're seeing large changes in these areas, they still make up smaller parts of the pie. So what are our major drivers or changes? Well, we have increased costs for utilities, fuel oil, propane, electricity, diesel, also our water and sewer. I forgot to mention those as well. Our health insurance and Medicare reimbursement, BOCES services, transportation, that's based on the contract change and that's projected, and the fuel. And safety and security, our security guards are new this year, and then we have the cameras that we want to install or replace aging cameras with. Supplies, again, that's due to inflation. And then salaries due to contractual obligations. And then we also have decreasing costs. We have the teachers' retirement system, the rates going from 10.29 to 9.8. And our salaries through breakage and movements. That's why we have declining salary. So what are our unknown factors right now in the non-instructional budget? We have changes in enrollment, and we may not know, we won't know actually until the end of summer what we're going to start the year with. So we always have to take that into consideration when building the budget. our fuel increases and what their subsequent effects will be. Will we be unable to get supplies or items that we order, equipment, vehicles, we aren't sure yet. Again, CPI, inflation, and our favorite unfunded mandates. Every time we turn around, there's a new report to file. So here again is our total non-instructional budget. And as a comparison, last year, the non-instructional section of the budget increased $2.3 million or 6.7%. So we're not too much further ahead than last year, and much of that is due to shifts from items on the instructional side over to the non-instructional side. Our state budget update, we're still waiting for them to finalize the legislative budget. Hopefully it will be on time this year by April 1st, and our amounts could change. We could see changes in our state aid. Overall, we're anticipating $29.5 million in state aid. Again, that's 31% of our total revenue. This does not include UPK. When the governor releases the numbers, and you'll see them in the paper and you'll hear about them, that includes our UPK. So I've backed that out because that's accounted for in the federal fund, not the general fund. So if you're wondering why there's a discrepancy, that's why. So that leads to a $4.3 million increase in our aid this year, and that does make the foundation aid whole. However, there is a caveat. We have to set aside $547,000 to be used for high impact tutoring. That's if that budget proposal passes on the 1st, but right now we're planning as if it does. So that leaves us with a net increase to our state aid of $3.7 million, not quite the $5 million I think that they were saying when it first came out. So I used the slide that we saw back in the January presentation. I wanted to put it back in here again. Now that the levy cap has been finalized and is filed, the levy cap calculation shows an increase of 2.8% or 1.4, almost $1.5 million. And I ran the numbers, and these are an estimate only. They're based on our current assessed values, our current equalization rates. And on a $300,000 home in the town of Goshen, if we were to go to the tax levy cap of 2.8%, the bill would increase $320. Again, that's an estimate based on our current numbers. If we were to increase our tax levy by 1%, the bill could increase $121. And if we were to go to 2%, it would be $242. Bearing in mind that these are both below the levy cap because the cap is at 2.8. So I've included the information from January. Really, it's just a rundown of where we were, where we are, and next year where we would be at 0%. And the cumulative amount of revenue, if we were to go with the tax levy cap in each of those years at the end of 23-24, would have been $3.9 million in revenue to offset our expenditures. Remember that our taxes make up a good chunk of our revenue. So I went a step further. If the board does choose to continue with a zero levy cap, I wanted to project out our tax levy cap for the next few years to see what that impact is, because you're starting at a lower number than you would if you were to increase taxes. So looking forward, we would be in the year 24-25 less than 1% for a tax levy cap. And it goes into the negative amounts in 25-26 and 26-27. And a big part of that reason is we have our current building project that we're going to be doing this summer for the HVAC should be, if it's on time, we should be getting aid for that. So that will help. That doesn't help. It actually drives our tax levy cap into the red. So why would this be a problem? Well, the year after next, we don't expect an aid increase. It could be minimal at best. Our foundation aid has been fully funded. We could have our expense-driven aids, which are our expenditures. Expenditures are rising, so we could see some increases there. There's been talk at the state level to change that formula as well in the future. They talk about it each year, so we don't really know. Our fund balance appropriation for this year was increased by $350,000 for many years, I think you had 900,000 appropriated. I don't remember how many years back. I want to say 10. But now we're up to 1.250 in appropriated fund balance. So we will have to appropriate more fund balance to make up for the lack of revenue, because our expenditures are rising, just like at home. Our groceries are through the roof at home, you and our electric, so we have to make up that difference somehow. So we do have fund balance and we do have reserves, but once you start tipping into those, you start to go down a spiral and end up with a funding cliff. So you want to be cognizant of that, because that is going to hurt us in the future. So I took it another step further and went and projected the tax levy at a 1% increase. We're still under the cap. The cap was 2.8%. And that would end up giving us slightly under 1%, but we aren't negative in 25-26 and 26-27. So this is 1% of our tax levy is $540,400. And it will be of help for us to not go negative in the future and hopefully offset some of the fund balance we will need to balance the budget. And then to take it another step further, I also projected with a 2% increase in our tax levy. And as you can see, we do have over 1%. We're at 2% in 25-26 and 26-27. Now, these estimates are based on what we know right now, and also based on our building aid coming in 2 years. So could that change? Yes, it could change, but at least it gives us a picture, a clear picture, a full picture, I guess, of what the impact would be. And a 2% increase is $1,080,000, $800, and it's still under the cap of 2.8%. And the home dollar increases on the bottom there. I know I spoke about it before, but it is also included. So some of the considerations, I think I reviewed the fund balance piece and whatnot. The future tax levy cap calculations include negative amounts or indicate negative amounts. Future state aid amounts could be minimal at best. We have rising expenses. I don't know what inflation will be in 2 years. I know it takes a while for a country to get back from that. It takes time. We do have to be cognizant of that and keep that in mind. We have potential funding cliffs, a potential funding cliff, because we have the appropriated fund balance that we've already increased this year. We are potentially going to have to increase that in the 23-24 budget as well. And we also want to remember this because future building projects, we do need to keep maintaining our buildings. And you funded the last building project with quite a bit of fund balance, which was very helpful because it reduces your interest expense. You're still getting the same amount of building aid, which is great because you're not spending as much in the interest side. You're using your savings. So it would be nice for us to be able to remember that we're using fund balance to appropriate towards the budget. We're saving money in the future by putting fund balance into the capital reserve to offset our costs. It also gives us our cash flow up front, so we don't have to even do ban. You can start funding your project right away when you have a capital reserve. So, let's see. Oops. So here are the dates to remember again. I just want to remind everybody that we do need to adopt that budget on April 17th and the property tax report card in order to get that filed in time, which is April 25th, and the public budget hearing, May 2nd, and the vote on the 16th. And we still have 2 more presentations to review. And in closing, there's a mission statement, which we always keep in mind when balancing the budget each year. And any questions or contact information for Dr. Coates, myself, and Mr. Harding, screen. And sorry, that was a lot of information. So if you have some questions, we're here for you to answer those as well. Questions? You'd like to add?
No, I think it was a great presentation.
I just have a question. With the BOCES transportation, the large increase from 245 to 506, what means that?
So that's that contract that was bid out last summer. And there was a very large increase in the rates and the bid went to quality. And there was not enough budgeted for it. We did have a large budget transfer in the beginning of the year to reflect that. So that's actually partly making up for what wasn't budgeted in 22-23, and also projecting for any increase with the new bid. They're doing another bid now for 23-24. So it's almost a double whammy, so to speak.
So just for clarity also, those are the bus runs that, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, they will go to Westchester County, they'll go to Dutchess County, to Putnam County for students that are in out-of-district placements. Ultimately, it would be fantastic if we could staff enough to be able to run those buses on our own. Right now, we're not able to do so, which is the reason we have to participate in that consortium.
It's supposed to save us money by transporting students with other districts too.
Doesn't seem to be.
That's the discount.
And where are we on utilities with heat and fuel and electric this year? Are we upside down already, or are we?
A little bit, yes. In electric, we are not so much fuel because we've been very fortunate with the degree days that we've had that have been so much above 0 or even 30.
But we still project we're gonna go over the 300,000?
Jim, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I projected in January that by June, I expected to be under budget in natural gas, 100,000, a little north of that. And I needed a little more money, about 20 grand in electricity. But Lorena is right, we've had a mild winter, but the bills are still coming in for January and February, and we have had our cold snaps. We'll see what happens.
We do have our electricities being bid as well tomorrow. I think the bids will know what they are, or Wednesday. So this number could change. I will adjust it accordingly. Hopefully anything will go down. This was worst case scenario amounts that we got from people that help us with the bids.
And this is the second round of bids.
Yeah,
I
we
set
rejected
aside
them.
the first bid. We advised not to accept it.
And who do you use for the bids?
Oh boy. No.
Apex?
Yes, it is
Okay.
Apex, yes. We met with them last Friday, actually.
Okay.
Overseas, yeah.
Yeah, just curious.
Something I think of NG, but no, it's Apex. NG's not-
I have a
they're-
question. I don't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
You're good. So last year, and this prior to you coming, there was a group of baseball athletes that came and they spoke to us about the grounds. And I'm not sure if, and maybe Mr. Freeze, you could answer that. I'm not sure if we were able to rectify. They had issues with the fields and it was going to be very costly. I'm not sure that it was placed in the budget to do this year. And if it was, great. If not, are we putting that in the budget to focus on next year? And this was more or less, they needed a place to hold their games, kept getting rained out. Was that
I
done?
believe we're talking about the JV and modified field
Right,
right here by CJ Hooker. So the whole field needs to be regraded. That's a larger project than just, filling in the dips with infield names. So this budget reflects the cost to operate, buy supplies, pay utilities, take care of some maintenance, which is requested maintenance from the teachers, preventive maintenance, and some repairs, breakdown maintenance. But improvements such as that, in order to maintain a zero increase in taxes, it's not budgeted for. But I do have some money that I do try to pull together coming out of the winters, where I do try to do some of that. I did meet with a field person who worked with me in a previous district. And I think I can get something done for, around 15,000, to make it more palatable. Let's see what's left over, and it's something I can bring to the table.
okay.
And we do have a scoreboard that doesn't work at the high school baseball field. And there's a few other things that Mr. St. Lawrence and I have been discussing, like nets over the softball field outside the stadium, where the balls are kind of heading into the stadium lot, lining up some people. So, across the board, there's some things that we need to take care of. People have also talked about dugouts. Folks have talked to me about replacing lockers. So there's a list of projects, and I have them all listed. And I'll work with our administration to address them as we can.
Okay. So just to back that up also, as Ms. Lamright shared, we've left the $1 million transfer to capital in there. So we do have our facilities committee that has currently been touring with Mr. Freeze, Ms. Lamright, and myself. They'll be making recommendations, thoughts on what they're hearing. Obviously, we will have that option also if some of these projects rise to the top on whether or not we want to address them through the use of those funds.
Awesome. Thank you.
Like, it's been long enough. Computers cycling through with the laptops. Are we good in the budget with that?
Yeah, that will actually be presented in the instructional
Later?
portion.
Okay, okay, great. And then just, do you want to add to that?
Jim gets the joy of coming back twice.
Yay. And then electric buses. We've talked a lot about that.
Yes.
So I'm saying the purchase of buses, but I know that the electric buses are a bigger hit.
So we've done two things. Number one, Karen actually had a vendor here the other day that we were able to actually take a ride on the electric bus and talk about what's available. We also met with Energia, who's an energy performance contract provider, who gave us some suggestions. I think we're going to have to open this up with our architect really to talk about the facilities. But Karen has some thoughts on the potential of how we can start slowly on this with the purchase of one or two. I'll let you speak to that.
Yes, in the budget, I did request that we purchase at least one full-size bus. Not sure just yet if it's gonna be a 66 or a 70 passenger. But it will come with a charger. It's a level 2 charger, which we should be able to accommodate just one bus for right now. Give it a shot and see how, the drivers respond to it, see if they like it, don't, what they like. Bring it down, give you guys a ride in it, see if you guys like it.
I know that we were talking about it and I can't remember. Was there there's no aid, there's no funding, no grants, nothing?
There are grants that are out there, yeah.
Okay. Couldn't remember.
They're aidable, and the issue is whether or not a district like this, we will try. But whether we qualify will be a different story.
How much is each bus?
Depending on the vendor, about 300.
And obviously, I'm going completely off track, but I'm just curious. We have done an analysis with our roads and the weight of the buses.
The weight is not much different.
It's not?
No.
Okay, because it was my understanding that some of the bridges and things, that some of the electric buses, they're just too heavy.
They're
No,
not much heavier than what we have now.
okay, that's good to know.
Is there any thought about bringing the fire department in, God forbid, for the case of an accident, have them with the vendor to see the safe weight batteries?
There was another entity that was going to be doing that with them, but I can try to get some more information on that.
Anything else? Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Coates. Next on the agenda, well, we have you on the agenda. Do you have more to say?
I was just going over our financials for,
Okay, so next on the agenda is the Assistant Superintendent for Business Report, Lorraine, Lamoran.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our financial reports for this month is January in your board packets. We have the treasurer's report, which shows our expenditures for the general fund, we're total $6 million. We also received some money. We received lottery aid, $152,000. And I wanted to report on how much interest we received, because you haven't heard this in a while. And we received $147,000 in interest. So that was, again, that silver lining in inflation. So you didn't know about that. We did not receive any regular state aid or excess cost aid. We should be seeing that in March. And our budget status reports, we've spent a total of 38.6 million, or 46% of our total budget as of the end of the month of January. And we earned $65.3 million, or 79% of our revenue projections. Really all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, Personnel, and Technology report, Mr. Jason Carter.
Thank you, Mrs. Salty. Good evening, everyone. Just a few things for you this evening. We'll start off with Just Words. So Dr. Wentworth and I have had multiple conversations regarding Just Words, which is Tier 2 intervention. It's a component of the Wilson reading system. Together, a proposal that you will receive in your next board packet for the purchase of Just Words with your approval. This is, as I had mentioned, a Tier 2 intervention that will target specific deficiencies, notably early literacy skills, foundational skill deficiencies. We believe that this is a good program, next in line, if you will, in the intervention components of the Wilson system. Just Words builds upon foundations which is being utilized in our lower level elementary Scotchtown Avenue schools. This is designed for, in this particular situation, our grade 4 and 5 students. Of course, if there is a need, we can push it up to some of the higher students at the middle school, again, if there are noted deficiencies, if we find value there. So you will receive that in memo form along with Dr. Wentworth's memo and some financials for Just Words in your next board. Moving on, as Michael had mentioned and as Mr. St. Lawrence had mentioned, we had many great things happen here in the district since our last board meeting. So I'll just go through those quickly for you. February 10th and 11th, our music department brought 13 students to the Port Jervis High School to play in the All-County Jazz Festival. This was really special with the 13 students. We had 3 students perform with the junior high jazz band. Wonderful job there. Should be commended for that for sure. 5 students with a high school jazz band and 5 students were able to sing in the vocal ensemble. March 4th and 5th, Goshen High School had 6 students, as mentioned earlier, participate in the New York State Band Directors Association Honors Band, which was held in Syracuse, East Syracuse. 5 students in concert band, 1 student played lead trumpet for the Honors Jazz Band. So really proud of our music department as always, and our teachers are doing a wonderful job. Just want to say thank you for all the guidance that they provide. Keep in mind that our students have to go through individual auditions to earn spots in these performances, and the auditions were as far back as last May. So last May and this past November, that's when our auditions took place. Also, as mentioned, our Region 5 competition for Odyssey of the Mind took place over the weekend. 3 of our teams placed 3rd, 2 of our teams placed 1st. Those first place teams, one from Goshen Intermediate School coached by Mrs. Losey. The other is a Goshen High School team coached by Ms. Seligman. Both will advance to the state finals held at Syracuse Fairgrounds on April 15th. Just want to say thank you to our coaches and participants. Our coaches volunteer an awful lot of time to make this happen, and our students practice for a very large amount of time. So obviously in our district, preparation pays off and we're very fortunate. So we want to commend those students as well. And finally, we just want to make mention of the upcoming C.J. Hooker musical. Matilda Jr. will be held on Friday, March 17th at 7 p.m. and also Saturday, 18th at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Again, our students put in an awful lot of time in practicing for this, as do the directors and assistant directors. So just want to extend thanks and best wishes for the upcoming performance of Matilda Jr. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Next on the agenda, I need a motion for the consent agenda. I have Shannon and Tom. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education accepts the retirement of James Blanis, social studies teacher, effective June 30th, 2023. Mr. Blanis has been with the district for 28 years. Be it further resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education accepts the retirement of Arlene, Pettit? Thank you. Typist, effective July 7th, 2023. Ms. Pettit has been with the district for 16 years. Be it further resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education accepts the retirement of Janice Gracie, school bus driver, effective February 28th, 2023. Ms. Gracie has been with the district for over 41 years. That's amazing. Be it further resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education accepts the retirement of Margaret Schumacher, effective August 15th, 2023. Ms. Schumacher has been with the district for 32 years. Be it further resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education accepts the retirement of employee 030623-R, effective June 30th, 2023. Be it further resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the remainder of the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? We have no old business. I'll move on to new business. I need a motion for approval of the minutes. Shannon and Brett. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the minutes for the February 6th, 2023 regular board meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? I need a motion for nomination of candidates for the Orange Ulster BOCES Board. Tom and Shannon. Be it resolved, the Board of Education nominates Martha Bogart and Lawrence Berger for re-election for the Orange Ulster Board of Cooperative Educational Services. All those in favor? Opposed? Next on the agenda, item 13.3, I need a motion to accept a donation of a sketch tablet. I have Tom and Billy. Be it resolved, the Board of Education does hereby accept with appreciation the donation of a Wacom, is that how you say it? Intuos medium pen tablet model PTH651 by Jennifer Casino for use by the Goshen High School graphic design students. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you to Jennifer, that was nice. Next on the agenda, I need a motion for authorization to accept donation from the Goshen Generosity Challenge. We have Shannon and Brett. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education accepts a donation of $2,500 from the Goshen Generosity Challenge given by Gordon Morrell, class of 1967 alumni, for the purpose of supporting project work by Goshen High School's Kindness Club. The $2,500 shall be placed in revenue account code C2705. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion for 13.5 to establish an account in Goshen High School Extra Classroom Activity Fund. I have Tom and Shannon. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools that an account for the following club be established within the Extra Classroom Activity Fund at Goshen High School. Kindness Club, and the faculty club advisor is Charles Doyle. Be it further resolved that the faculty club advisor or advisors are authorized to sign disbursement orders, receipts, and otherwise oversee this account in accordance with district policy and the procedures outlined in the New York State Education Department guidelines entitled The Safeguarding, Accounting, and Auditing of Extra Classroom Activity Funds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to approve the revised 2023-2024 student calendar. Brett and Shannon. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education adopts the revised 2023-2024 student calendar as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion 13.7 to approve the 12-month employee holiday calendar for 2023-2024. I have Shannon and Tom. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the 12-month employee holiday calendar for the 2023-2024 school year as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to approve an overnight trip, the Goshen High School art students. I have Billy and Shannon. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education approves an overnight trip for Goshen High School art students to attend art museums, historical sites, and other local sites in upstate New York and Massachusetts from June 2nd to June 5th, 2023. Be it further resolved that the board reserves the right to cancel or reschedule any school-sponsored trip or activity in the event of an emergency condition outside of the control of the school district in its sole discretion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to approve an overnight trip to the Olympics of Visual Arts trip to Saratoga Springs. I have Shannon and Tom. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education approves the Olympics of the Visual Arts trip to Saratoga Springs, New York from April 26th to the 27th, 2023. Be it further resolved that the board reserves the right to cancel or reschedule any school-sponsored trip or activity in the event of any emergency condition outside of the control of the school district in its sole discretion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to approve an overnight trip to Model UN. And Tom and Billy. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education approves the Model UN trip to New York City, New York from March 10th to the 13th, 2023. Be it further resolved that the board reserves the right to cancel or reschedule any school-sponsored trip or activity in the event of an emergency condition outside of control of the school district in its sole discretion. All those in favor? You know, a motion to approve a budgetary transfer. I have Brett and Shannon. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the following budgetary transfers over $25,000 for the month of January 2023. Transfer a special education student from BOCES to another program dated January 31st, 23, $80,000. IT consultants dated January 27th, 23, $25,530. Natural gas, fuel, oil price increases dated January 31st, 2023 of $130,000. And tax settlement and salary adjustments dated 1/31/23 in the amount of $162,400. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I need a motion to adopt alcoholism and drug abuse council curriculum in Scotchtown Avenue. I have Billy and Tom. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education adopts the Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Council, ADAC, curriculum related to substance awareness and substance abuse for use at Scotchtown Avenue Elementary School. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We need a motion for authorization to accept a donation from Section 9 Athletic Council, New York Jets, and increase the budget. We have Shannon and Tom. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education accepts a donation of $3,075 from the Section 9 Athletic Council given by New York Jets for the purpose of supporting girls flag football. The $3,075 shall be placed in revenue account code C2705. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to accept annual fire inspection report. Tom and Billy. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education acknowledges receipt of the public school fire safety reports as presented on March 6, 2023. It is noted that any non-conformances that were indicated at the time of inspection were corrected and new certificates of occupancy have been issued. Additionally, it is noted that legal notice will be published at least once in newspapers of record and that the fire departments with jurisdiction covering school facilities have also been notified and given access to inspection reports. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We need to add another item, 13.15, Maureen. I need a motion to approve terms and conditions of employment of secretary to the superintendent, district clerk, and records retention officer. We have Billy and Brett. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the terms and conditions for the secretary to the superintendent, district clerk, and records retention officer effective July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Next on the agenda, we have privilege of the floor. I don't think anybody's. You. Next on the agenda is board member issues or committee reports.
Just a quick question. Right now, our policy update manual, did we have a project manager assigned by NISBA yet? Who's going to be spearheading the efforts? No. Not yet. Okay. One more follow-up question. Have we heard anything from the surrounding school districts regarding the working session format? We were talking about maybe the fellow district.
So no one from Westchester County responded. I reached out to the Lower Hudson County School Superintendents, no one responded. There's two districts I'm aware of that do it. Obviously, the Florida Union Free School District right next door does it. And then the Mount Pleasant School District has that format in Westchester County.
Thanks.
So I think, our thought is that we could, maybe, I believe that you said that they have something online, but do they have the,
They don't stream the work session, they do not.
Okay. So it would have to be an in-person.
So yeah, maybe we could find out the schedule from Florida and.
I wouldn't even say, or even if you wanted to take a trip down to Westchester. Either one.
Either way, I'm happy to reach out if you want to go down.
Sure. Yeah, I think if we at least find the schedules, we could see what we might like to observe and go from there.
And if I can just add to with the policy committee, Maureen will be putting you to be seeing something because we talked about now getting the regular schedule together for that. So yeah, Maureen's gonna be putting that out tomorrow.
Fantastic.
So we'll get that going, and we talked a lot about, specifically what we wanna look at.
Yep, sounds good.
Anyone else? Next on the agenda is close the meeting. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. Meeting is closed. Oh, I need a motion to close the meeting. Let's do that. 9 months. Shannon and Tom. All those in favor?